Chapter 15, Curse of the Magi. Insert several minutes of careful stretching here. Val and Dirk looked at each other with a gleam in their eyes. They dropped the rest of their gear on the ground. Dirk threw his shirt on top of his equipment, nodded, then flexed his fists. "Bring it on, old man," said Val. "Show me what you got, kid." With great speed, the two bolted towards the lake and jumped, hurtling themselves up to the top of the nearest pillars. Each of them balanced carefully on one foot, facing each other mano a mano, ready to pounce. With a war cry, Val launched himself into the air, sailing at Dirk with a violent kick. Dirk simply turned sideways and deflected the blow, grabbing the outstretched leg and casually tossing him back onto a pillar further towards the center of the lake. "Your form is all off. Try again. Only this time, put some life into it." Dirk's voice took on a more commanding tone, a drastic change from the laid-back manner it usually had. "So, are you planning to stand there on your totem pole all day, or will you be joining in on our fight?" Val lunged low this time, reaching for Dirk's legs. Anticipating this action, Dirk simply backflipped to the pole behind him. "I'll get serious as soon as you do," he replied. Only this time, Val was serious, knowing full well that Dirk would anticipate almost anything expected, so he tried something different. Not missing a beat, his hands connected with the pole, his legs swung low as he rotated below the pillar's horizon. Coming up to the other side, his feet aimed right back at his adversary. Dirk blocked several quick and precise, consecutive blows as Val flipped through the air and landed on another pole. The force of the attack knocked him back, dropping him straight down. Hands out, he caught the top of the pillar, holding him from falling to the waters below. A smile broadened his face. "Now that's what I want to see," Dirk bellowed as he launched his hulking body skyward. Val moved from column to column in a large circular motion, moving around to where Dirk was aiming to land. Dirk's body rotated as he backflipped in the air, changing his trajectory and placing himself directly in front of Val. The mound of muscles landed hard on the stone surface. The impact could be heard echoing for miles. The column itself exploded in an overwhelming cloud of dust. His momentum pulling him forward, Val had to think fast, leaping over the dust cloud, flipping and twisting about to keep a strained eye on the thick fog that had consumed his elven brother. Suddenly, a face emerged from the cloud, only it wasn't Dirk's. The face had no neck, nor a body to follow it, remnants of the stone pillar. The stone face hurtled straight at him, narrowly missing him as he sailed overhead. He also took notice of other projectiles rapidly flying out in all directions. The only safe spot ended up being the one he had just vacated. Standing still on what remained of his stone floor, Dirk listened intensely to the stillness of the calm breeze. The sounds of Val's body could be heard moving through the air. Dirk concentrated on these sounds. Timing had to be perfect. Too soon, and he'd more or less miss his mark. Too late, and the smokescreen would no longer hide him. "That's the sound I'm looking for," he thought to himself. Val had made the final rotation in his flight, repositioning his body so that he would land on his feet. Channeling his mighty strength, Dirk lunged back into space. Val heard rocks slide out from under Dirk's footing, but not before the mighty elven warrior emerged from the thick dust. An almost sadistic smile flashed on his face. Preceded by an unexpected corkscrew rotation of his body, the rotation gave Dirk the necessary technique to deploy his assault. Several rocks shot at Val. Their speed and rotation made them hard to deflect. Shot after shot impacted his body as he frantically tried to dodge and ward off the rain of fury. As the last rock struck, Val's feet hit the ground. He swayed vigorously as he scrambled to keep his balance. Dirk's outstretched fist connected solidly against his chest, twisting with the rapid rotation of his body. Shuddering, Val felt his body fly backwards from the impact, spinning on its axis, head over heels in its drastic sideways rotation caused by Dirk's unique technique. Dirk had taken his place in Val's previous spot, advancing, hurtling forward relentlessly. Val's body slammed hard against one pillar, crashed right through it and into the next one behind it. Clutching onto the sides of the column, he had just enough time to catch his breath before Dirk caught up with him. Val flipped upwards just in time to dodge the next assault as Dirk crashed right on through it. Rock shattered everywhere. Val had flipped onto the top of the pillar that had been struck. He was going to move to the next one, but never had the time to do so. Rather than the rock falling to the waters below, it was moving up. Dirk held the remnants of the pillar and hurled it skyward. Still holding on, he was in flight with it. Then he pulled down sharply, removing the ground that was beneath his feet. "Oh no you don't, Dirk. Don't you dare use that as a club," Val cried out, bracing for the blow that was sure to come as the ground did in fact come right back at him, and by ground, I mean the chunk of stone that was once part of the stone column. "You must train to expect anything, no holds barred," Dirk responded as the rock connected with Val. With cunning expertise, Val coiled like a spring and pushed off the rock, using the force to his advantage. Val flew further skyward, away from his brother, into the bright and shining sun. Val had, in a way, hoped Dirk would proceed in that fashion, allowing him to be placed between Dirk and the intense sun, now hidden in the very heart of the sky. Val concentrated hard, thinking back to his training. Now how is this done? Val thought to himself. Pushing his concentration to its limits and focusing everything he had on one spot, one point of origin, and released. Now, you know the move, the one where a martial arts master throws a punch, removing the flame from a lit candle. Yeah, that's the one. Well, that move was always a favorite of his. A move he had never perfected, never mastered. Frankly, he'd never even achieved a successful attempt, not once. But all that was about to change. Val felt something shift inside him, something new. He could only liken the sensation to a bubble-popping sort. A feeling of warmth swept over his entire body and then converged into his arms. Quickly, he shifted his weight around, facing the ground below, repositioning for descent. Punching, open fists skyward, the contained energy was released outwards, flooding out like a torrent of raging water. Val felt his body accelerating downward, back to the theater of war. He will not be expecting this. He cannot be expecting this. Dirk knows I cannot pull something like this off. He is in for a show now. He connected with a grin as he gained even more speed as the surface below caught up with his thoughts. Hearing an unnatural howling in the wind, Dirk broke from mid-stretch and looked up. Not a thing in the sky, just the sun shimmering warmly down upon him. Then it dawned on him, wherein only Val was already sailing past his back, legs clasping around his thick neck. Before he had time to react, let alone think, the young man flipped over, transferring all the kinetic energy to the elf, tumbling him uncontrollably to the waters below. With a loud splash, Dirk disappeared beneath the churning waves. Val stood on his pole victoriously. Hand outstretched, he held an imaginary cup. Pounding it back, he gulped loudly, followed by a loud sigh. Wiping the pretend liquid off his face, he shouted loudly, "Can you taste that, Dirk? Can you? That is the sweet, sweet taste of victory." Val paused amid his gloat. Shouldn't he have come up by now? "Hey, Dirk." Val paused, waiting for something, anything. Peering down to the depths below, he began to notice that the churning had grown increasingly violent. Foaming and bubbling, steam started to burst forth in vehement surges. Boisterous bellowing seemed to come from everywhere, echoing off the stone pillars and reverberating off the water. "Damn it, where's Dirk?" "Dirk!" Val hollered as he contemplated diving in after him. Probably cold, he peered closely at the frothy cascading water that others may think would be hot, considering the steam and all, but Val obviously thought differently. "You know, I am not coming down to rescue you. I know how long you can hold your breath." Val stuck his thumb on his chest. "You will not be fooling me. Not this time." A new kind of fear abruptly gripped at Val, grasping at him like the hand of death itself. His mind raced to find some command that would move his body that was now frozen in fear. Dragon fear. With haste, he recovered control as a dragon flew out of the water straight at him, dragging a massive amount of water with it. Val screamed like a girl as he locked eyes with the deadly monster, staring face to face with green scales and sharp pointed teeth. The dragon slammed its head into Val, continuing his trajectory, flying straight up, pushing Val along with it. Frantically, Val threw a fury of punches. The dragon's head snapped back and forth, trying to shake Val off as the two continued sailing into the atmosphere. As their ascent came to a halt, the water that had gravitated to the dragon's body caught up with them, raining all around, soaking Val completely from head to toe. Val's body began to glow as he continued his kicks and punches into the rock-solid armored body, fighting against every urge that told him to continue screaming like a girl from the dragon fear that continued to grip at every fiber of his being. Val's glowing body unexpectedly began to change, slowly at first, morphing into a more petite body with 2 lumps forming on his chest. Then his hair went humph and grew back instantly, only it was red this time, with long wavy natural curls flowing down to the small of his back. A stark contrast to the normal black it once was. He paused from fighting the dragon, now noticing the changes that had just transpired. "What's going on?" Val screamed in a girl's voice. What's wrong with my voice? What's going on? What's going? And where did this dragon come from anyway?" The dragon bunted the now female Val off his head and grabbed him, or rather, catching her with his massive, clawed hand as they sailed through the sky. Only at this point, the dragon did not seem to be aggressive at all. Rather, it was very confused. It kind of made some sort of growling sounds, as if it was actually saying huh? The dragon was now looking from side to side, at its wings and being genuinely surprised at the fact that it even had wings. Oblivious to the fact that they were now flying, the dragon was more on a type of instinctive autopilot than anything else. The dragon turned its head back towards Val, showing blatantly the surprise on its face. Then it let out a bunch of very curious sounds as it more or less glided down and landed hard on the nearby grassy area, plowing into the ground, destroying foliage and ruining the landscape. Val felt the dragon's grip loosen slightly as they skidded to a halt. He had to struggle to stay in the giant hand and not be thrown away. Finally, at a stop, the dragon set the girl down gently. Only Val's clothes seemed a little on the big side now. As she was set down, his pants fell to her ankles, his boxers descending down to join them as she frantically tried to grab a hold of them. Luckily, his shirt was way too long and covered everything, clinging onto some modesty. He suddenly realized something particularly important. Was everything even still there? Val checked his crotch, checking for his one and only beloved bait and tackle. Val's eyes sprang open wide. "Nua. I have no dick," she cried. "It's gone. It's gone. It's all gone. The humanity of it all. Gone. And no balls either. No balls." Tears started to stream down the now feminine face. "I lost my balls," a long drawn-out cry escaped the now lush lips. Slowly wiping tears away, she found herself staring downwards, noticing the unfamiliar pair of melons that now sat on his chest. "But look at my boobs. Wow, now that has to be a pair to be proud of," she said as she poked them, kind of amused. Val looked around, realizing what else was missing. What happened to Dirk? No, it can't be. Val's brain sprang into overdrive, recognizing that the dragon may be Dirk. They both pointed at each other and screamed. Now, if you can imagine a dragon screaming, that is what it would sound like, alongside of the screams of a woman. "Dirk, is that you?" Dirk the dragon said a series of growls and grunts and did the motion of nodding yes. Dragon Dirk lowered his head to Val's with a peculiar look on its dragony face. Val stared back at the dragon in confusion. "What are you staring at?" Then Val suddenly remembered that he too transformed into a sexy young woman with fiery red hair. "Oh, right, so let me get this straight. You were down there for minutes, and you became this dragon, and I became..." Val paused, catching sight of his reflection in Dragon Dirk's shiny green scales that covered his now bestial body. "A beautiful woman?" The words came out slowly in the now female voice, taking a tone of reverence and awe. Val played with his thick curly hair as Dirk panned his long dragon neck around, taking it all in. Dirk was now a dragon, a large, powerful-looking, dark green dragon. Thick scales covered his entire body. His underside was silver in color, closely knit smaller scales these were. It is said that not much of anything can penetrate the thick armor. Only the bravest or foolishest would dare take arms against such a majestic and dangerous creature. Nevertheless, the western continents were not known for dragons. They tended to keep to their middle continental kingdoms, so this was the first time either of them had ever seen one, besides pictures and paintings, of course. Dirk stretched out his large arm, gazing at the sharp claws that flashed like organic steel swords. Swiping them at a nearby boulder, it split in pieces without any effort. Val shuddered at the sound as it caught her ears. Now don't get too carried away. I'm sure you'll have more than enough time to play around later. Pausing, she reflected back on what had transpired. She glowered, resting her hands on her hips. So, as I see it, this river is cursed or something. Shaking a finger at the dragon, you know, Dirk, you really should have checked for curses before suggesting this place. Collapsing onto her butt, planting it firmly in the grass, a disturbed look appeared on her face. I really don't know how to take this. This is insane. She shouted as she flung her hands into the air, the action causing certain new things, to jiggle unexpectedly. Dropping her arms down to stop the unwanted motion, blushing a crimson color that filled her face, I would have never thought this could happen to anyone. Val gradually looked up at Dirk. You can't talk yet, can you? Dirk tried to speak through his dragon mouth, but all that came out was more guttural sounds and moans. Then he shook his head as if saying no. Val got back to her feet. There's nothing more for us here. We should get a move on and search for somebody, somewhere, that might know anything about this curse. See if we can get this all fixed up. Not sure I want to be a girl for the rest of my life. Val was still very unsure about how he should be taking all of this. On the one hand, he was now what he desired the most. On the other hand, would women care to be with another woman? Dirk started to protest in his dragonese, pointing his head towards the lake that they had done battle as men only a brief time ago. What is it, Dirk? Do you want to go trash the place? No. Val tried to read the dragon charades, but it just failed to work. Whatever it is it more important than getting us back to normal? Dirk paused and then, after a moment of thought, shook his head. No. I didn't think so. Come on, shake a leg already. Val tapped his toe impatiently, waiting for Dirk to cooperate with him. Dirk reluctantly lowered his head, allowing Val to leap up onto the back of his enormous neck. His oversized boxers constantly taking their descent down the slender legs of hers. What an irritation this is already. Letting them go, Val grabbed hold of the large scales that adorned Dirk's entire body. Looking back to see if she was ready, she was. The dragon opened up his huge leathery wings and took off, very roughly smashing against the ground randomly. But he managed to fly, for the most part, in a somewhat straight line. If you could call that flying, I guess you could. What else would you call it? Pushing his way through the air. Pusha, flying, pusslying. Better than fallying, I guess. I hope you can fly this thing. Hey, watch it, you big oaf. I do not want to fall. You could hear the screams of a girl and the bellowing of a dragon for miles as the two flew off into the setting sun, in a wibbly, wobbly, haphazard kind of way.